Hope you had a wonderful Easter, particularly you, Fidel Castro, you old fascist. Hi there. Now, at the end of the show, we're going to talk about this, but did you see that Fidel Castro, who actually has imprisoned people for the crime of contracting AIDS, has criticised Canada and Stephen Harper? Well, isn't that just fun? By the way, offer of some free tickets. Now, this is important. Tickets, look, I have them here in my hand, 5 of them, for Steinemite, the great Mark Stein, also featuring Michael Coren. Anyway, if you email the arena at sunmedia.ca, once more, that's the arena at sunmedia.ca, and tell us why you like the arena. If you dislike the arena, don't even bother. And we'll pick out the leading 5 and you will get tickets for that great event. Now, the newly discovered psychiatric records of former Nazi deputy leader Rudolf Hess reveal that the wretched old loony was convinced that the Jews had hypnotized Winston Churchill into opposing Hitler and Germany. If only he could have broken the spell of those evil Jewish magicians, thought Hess, he could have ended the war and brought about universal Aryan brotherhood and love. Nice idea, but, you know, those hypnotizing Jews aren't so easy to overcome. Mind you, neither are hypnotizing conservatives who keep using their evil magic on voters all over the world. Seriously, have you noticed that whenever right-wingers win in Germany, France, Britain, Spain, Italy, Canada, Russia, Poland, Hungary, New Zealand, and everywhere else, it's always explained by the usual types that fear or stupidity or people being threatened or the electorate not fully grasping the complexities and nuances of the political process won the day. But when the left wins, and it's not often, it's always a fine example of democracy at work. But there's something also equally repugnant at play here as well. Take, for example, the election of David Miller to be mayor of Tirana. He only won because of a dreadfully weak opponent and a divided alternative with low turnouts and general apathy. But the right accepted the result and moved forward. Aha! When Rob Ford won the election to become Toronto mayor, with a large majority and with a competent, vicious opponent and a massively hostile media, the left refused to accept the result and immediately set about stopping the man from leading the city, trying to bring him down. Now, we saw this also with George W. Bush in the US, of course, with the campaign of lies and misinformation about his election. Mind you, we also saw it with the assassination of his character and his intelligence. Look, he was no fool and far more accomplished and a far more intelligent man with a better mind than, say, Jimmy Carter, Al Gore, Joe Biden. But because he was a Republican, he was mocked. We see it with President Obama, peace be upon him. Ask yourself, have you ever heard this man say anything that resonates beyond the childish emotionalism of a teleprompter soundbite? Well, I haven't. Silly, over-temperamental women who want to sleep with him, middle-aged guys who want to live through him, and dunderhead students who follow whatever trend and fashion is washing across campus do not an intelligentsia make. Now, in Canada, the double standards are everywhere. We now know that NDP leader Thomas Mulcair, for example, has joint nationality, a French passport, and listen to this, has voted in French elections. Now, I was born in Britain. Yeah. I left when I was 27, so I'm very British. But I make my living and live in Canada. So I only have a Canadian passport. And I wouldn't dream of voting in Britain. It would be disloyal to Canada and unfair to assume that I should have an influence on British politics. And I don't aspire to be Canadian Prime Minister. Now, can you imagine for a moment what would have happened if Stephen Harper had been revealed to hold dual nationality, have a foreign passport, and have voted in foreign elections? It would have been front-page news on the newspapers, the subject of endless CBC investigations paid for by you. Yes, hypocrisy, double standard, and no level playing field. Maybe Rudolf Hess was right. Not the Jews, perhaps, but somebody is hypnotizing the Canadian chattering and ruling classes. Look into my eyes, silly novelist, overpaid Labour leader and CBC robot. Look into my eyes.